Card number 61, Hall of Famer George Kell, with some sleepy jazz music that might have put you all to sleep. It also might get me in trouble for copyright issues, but that's fine. Card Room Live, session number 61. Good evening, everybody. If you are new to the session, hope you'll introduce yourself in the chat. We have some people from YouTube here. We have some people from Instagram. Say hello. Just a word before we get started. I always say this is not a show. This is a hangout for fellow vintage collectors. Sometimes we have guests like we do tonight, and they're all waiting for me to get through this. But most of the time, we waste time looking at and talking about cardboard, and through it all, we try to make that time well wasted. So if you're here with us live, welcome. I will keep my eye on the chat and be sure to include your comments as we go through the conversation tonight. Greg, hello to you. I see you in the chat. If you're listening to this later, we have a lot of folks that listen to this later when they're going to work, when they're coming home from work, when they're sorting cards, looking at eBay. You guys know the drill, walking the dog, sitting on the john, whatever you happen to be doing. I hope you get something out of it. If you want to get in touch or you have ideas for future sessions, you can email me at bowman53channel@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram, Bowman53_Alex. You can find me on Twitter, 1953 Bowman Color. And you can always find all that information right below me here in the description. So Rocket Rick is here. What's up? Peter is here. Looking forward to seeing who else shows up in the chat tonight, so I'll keep my eye on that. Jason's here. I'm glad you're looking forward to it. So we've got some folks hanging out in the background here. These are some gentlemen that I've had on this, some of them many times, but we definitely all did one session a while back, and I wanted to have these guys back, and they all agreed to do it. So let's get these folks in here. So we've got Scott from Stukes Baseball Cards and Curiosities. How are you, Scott?
Doing great. Thanks for having me back.
All right. We've got Rick. What's up, Rick?
Hey, Alex. How you doing?
Doing good. Good to see you.
Thank you. You too.
The Drew, Vintage Legacy. How are you, Drew?
Very good, sir. Thank you.
Great. And we've got Don, of course, who's on vacation right now, but making time for
weekend visit.
Very good. Dan is here, and Mike, Sports History Collector. Mookie's here. I like this. This room has like 25% of my subscribed list. Okay, great. Excellent.
So who's the one on here that's not on his list?
It might be me. So, guys, we did this way back in session 42 was the time that I had all you guys on together, which is quite a while ago now. And I had to go back and look. We had spent a lot of time looking at 50s cards in that session, although we kind of deviated from that. Tonight we're going to do something different. I contacted all these guys and I said, hey, let's do it again. And I didn't have an idea for it. And Drew, I think it was you that had the idea. Do you want to go ahead and share the idea?
Yeah. So, I mean, very loosely, depending on this, it's not strict rules, but, I thought, as we look at cards and discover stuff, a lot of us, we just stare at them and we look at our players or our sets that we really enjoy. And there's something that all of a sudden will jump out at you, something you learn Maybe it's something on the back of a card that's a little tidbit of information, a statistic you never knew, something about the picture or in the background, or just something different. Maybe it's something that's well known amongst the community. Maybe it's something you discovered yourself. So I thought let's just talk about things that we've sort of learned outside of player, team position, that sort of thing. It just, I don't know, just something quirky or unusual about individual cards or specific cards that we all have or enjoy. So.
Great. Yeah, and I thought that was a great idea. All of us have pretty interesting collections. They're all different, and I knew as soon as you suggested that all of us are going to, our brains are going to get busy, and we're going to have different ideas. So I'm really curious because I have no idea what you guys pulled, and we're going to take turns, kind of going one or two at a time, and just sort of see how this goes. So, Stu, we'll start with you, if that's cool.
That's good. Everybody pretty much knows that I collect exhibit cards. I'm working on a set of them, and I've found by going through them that there's multiple poses for several players, and the same players might have multiple variations depending on if the logo's visible or not. I can start with Royce Sievers. That's the 1950. This card was printed in 1950. He's with the St. Louis Browns. So to keep him in the set, they printed him with Washington.
Okay.
Different pose. Okay, so that's 1958. 1959, they have a dark background on the same card. So then in 1960, they take the logo off the cap. I believe he's with Chicago. And there's no Washington on the uniform, so they airbrushed a few things off of there.
Right.
So there's 4 different versions of one player in the set.
Very cool.
Those are the obvious variations. There's also other little made in USA, printed in USA variations, but those are the major differences. And I found a whole bunch of those.
Yeah, how much time did that span from the first card you showed to the last? How much time was that?
10 years.
10 years, yeah.
Yeah, some players were printed the same image every year for 10 years or so. Some players had different poses. Some were airbrushed. Some had the same image. Some were only printed 1 year, like Satchel Paige. He was only printed 1 year, 1949. So there's a lot of good stuff in there that I've been finding out, and it seems like every day I add 1 or 2 cards to my checklist.
Nice. All right, great. Let's see. How about Drew? How about we go to you next?
All right. So one of the things I like to do, and part of this goes to the fact that a number of years ago I completed a 1956 set, and of course the 1956 has a portrait shot as well as an action shot. I talked about it a lot on the last time we were together. But what I like to do is I like to see what other players are on players' cards. So I'm going to show a couple, not many. But just this one is more known. This isn't a secret or anything I discovered, but just an example. So this is my glare is terrible with these cases, but this is a Hank Aaron from 1956. And I think most people know that the image that they used, sliding, is actually Willie Mays,
right.
Which I find interesting, not because, we know of these two as how were they linked together for decades, but this is very early, especially in Aaron's career, that they use that. But that's what I'm talking about, another player. And the one that I wanted to show, which I think is kind of cool, if I can find it, is actually, and there's a number of them, but the Eddie Matthews in the set, it shows him kind of coming up, barreling over, to break up a double play, but that's Pee Wee Reese laying on the ground.
Oh, nice.
Clearly see the Dodgers thing. Obviously, it's a shortstop. And I don't know. Being a Pee Wee Reese collector, that's just cool.
And the loose baseball.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that, again, both of these guys were, well, Reese was nearing the end of his career, but Matthews was sort of at the beginning of it. But they're linked, Hall of Famers, both just great players from their positions, both overshadowed because of who they played with. With Jackie Robinson with Reese, or Hank Aaron with Eddie Matthews. But still, it's just it was a choice that someone in the art department made in Topps, and now they're linked, and I think that's really cool. Again, this is not a huge secret, but I think it's still interesting. I don't know. I like going through it. There's a number of them, if you look, where you can see where there's plays at the plate, and because a lot of these pictures were taken in New York, there's a lot of them. I don't have them pulled out, but there's a lot that either have Yogi Berra or Roy Campanella on these cards at these plays at the plate. I find that very interesting. So that's starter, and then if you don't mind, I'll do something else real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
I discovered this one just because, and another set that I completed actually before the 56 was 1971 Topps. So this is a card. This is Bud Harrelson from 1971 Topps. And again, if you've collected for a while, hey, there's a Hall of Famer right there. And of course, the fact that Bud Harrelson was a shortstop over here, but you can see very clearly in the foreground were Nolan Ryan. Well, that's not unknown. I mean, that's kind of a known thing, and a lot of people. In fact, if you looked in Neil Beckett magazines, it would be listed Bud Harrelson in quotations, or in parentheses rather, with Nolan Ryan. So it wasn't like a secret. But what I found interesting was the rest of this. So you've got 5 people in this play, in this picture. Bud Harrelson, the shortstop, applying the tag. Of course, Nolan Ryan in the foreground. You've got the second baseman backing up Bud Harrelson, the umpire and the player sliding in. So I tried to do a little research because I'm like, I wonder who these other guys were. So it wasn't hard to find the second baseman. And it's not the umpire that I found interesting. It's actually the player sliding second. I did a lot of research to figure this out. I went back to scores from 1970, because what you can see from this is a day game in Shea Stadium that happened in 1970 that Nolan Ryan pitched at. So when you start whittling it down, there was only a couple of potential games this could have been from. And then when you look at the uniform from the visiting player, it whittled down to basically one team that it could have been from. And that team happened to be the Houston Astros. And when you look at the player again, there's something if you can notice on his sleeve. He actually has a patch on his sleeve. Anyway, going back through, and what this card is this is the next play after this picture was taken of Hall of Famer Joe Morgan. Joe Morgan got a hit in the same game, stole second base, and that's where they got that picture. So the fact that the Bud Harrelson has Nolan Ryan also has Joe Morgan sliding into second. And I just thought it was cool that it happened, and that I never read that. I never read it anywhere, but I found that out just by a lot of research and figuring it out. So that's the kind of cool thing I'm talking about.
Well, I think we should just end the show right now, because I don't know that we're going to be able to top that. That's pretty amazing.
Hey, Drew, on that 56, Aaron, did you see the video, or any of you guys, that Carlisle made about that card, that there's actually 3 Hall of Famers on it?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great video.
Along with the umpire, right?
Right.
Yeah. So there
Very
you go.
cool.
That's the whole hidden player. I know Don did a series a while ago about other players in 70s cards. It's actually a lot more prevalent. And that it's just cool to me, just to see other players of now. I remember the one you did where they took Reggie Jackson and they airbrushed him to become a Cub or something.
You're stealing my thunder.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. He did a video. I don't remember any details. So.
All right. Don, let's move on to you. And Don, you got a question earlier on. Somebody wants to know what cigar are you smoking?
A Hoya de Monterey.
There you go.
So we might as well start with that card if you can.
Yeah, sure.
Already.
So Don is away from Don's Field of Dreams headquarters. So as a result, I've got together with Don and pulled the cards that he wants to show. So we don't have the actual physical cards, but we'll take a look at some images. And which one do you want to show, Don?
Let's
The,
do the one Drew was talking about, the 73 Bob Locker.
Right. Okay, here you go.
Yeah, so due to the great airbrushing of Topps back in the day, you can see Bob Locker doesn't even have a number or name on the back of his Cubs uniform. But as Drew was saying, that's obviously Reggie Jackson in the background. And that video that I did about this card, I think, has more views than any of my other videos. So I think I told it, did you know Reggie played for the Cubs or something like that? But this is obviously when they were with the Oakland A's. And this just goes back to what Drew said with players in the background. But this is the only one I know of with a player in a uniform for a team he never played for. So I always thought this card was cool.
Yeah, the airbrushing on Reggie Jackson is really terrible. And that giant, like, Red Sea
Right.
is just like, what's going on?
But they couldn't even put a number on Locker.
Yeah.
Like, thanks for trying, guys.
Nice.
So,
All right, Rick, you're up.
All right. I'm going to start with two cards just based off of what Drew just showed. And Mookie Chilson just asked this question. So when I saw Joe Morgan and I saw Nolan Ryan, it made me kind of say, wow, could this possibly be from the same game?
Oh,
And
yes.
the reason I was going to actually brought this card was because Royal Crown Cola is advertised in the background. And I'm wondering, I'll throw this out to everyone. Would we see an advertisement like this on a modern card today?
Oh, good question.
I would think that would get airbrushed out now.
Right. I mean, it's funny because I feel like they're really careful not to show anything like that in the photography now.
Exactly.
yeah, this part.
And on my second card, this was based off a video that I did last week regarding Duke Snyder. And Dan from your guest last week from Dan's Vintage Baseball PC, he called it out. And I never noticed this. I brought it up with a few other people. This Morel Meets card from 1960. Now, I'm hoping that it comes out right on the camera here. But you see the Coliseum in the background where the Dodgers played from 1958 to 1961. But look at Duke's batting position.
Oh, yeah.
I never noticed that. And Dan called it out in my comments. And I mentioned it to a few other people, and they said they had never noticed that either.
Yeah, that's crazy. How could you not notice that? But
is he just trying to pull a fast one?
Yeah. Yeah, that's bizarre.
Yeah. So those are and Dan, thanks for calling that out, by the way, because I had never noticed that. But wanted to start
Hey, Drew, in case you're stumped, he was a left-handed hitter, so I just want to let you know.
No, I've heard of him before.
All right, I'll share a card. And I actually, maybe like 15 minutes before we started, I just happened to go to preworkcards.com, and it's been a while since I went there. Every now and then they'll have a new article, and I just read one that was about this card. So this is the T205 Christy Mathewson. And I did not know this about this card, so this was news to me. It may not be news for some of you guys out there, but there's actually an error variation with this card. And the error is that on certain backs, this is a Piedmont back, so I don't have the error, but I think it's on cycle backs. Mathewson is listed as having won 37 games and lost one game in 1908, I think, when in reality he won 37 games and lost 11 games. I doubt you guys are going to be able to see that on this card, but on my card he says he lost 11 games, but on that error card it says he lost one game. Now, Christy Mathewson, everybody knows, was a great pitcher, but he wasn't that good. which I think was kind of interesting. So that's my error. Well, it's not my error, but it's the error that exists out there.
That's cool.
All right. Who'd like to go next?
I can go next.
Go for it.
We've been talking about airbrushing, and
Yeah.
I did a video on this a while back, but as you can see, Jackie Robinson doesn't have any team logo or anything on his hat. This card originally was printed in 1948, so that's an early Jackie Robinson, except it was printed again in 49, 50, continuously. But this is a black and white version, so you can get it down to 1952. But he's still in this pose, and he's wearing a Montreal Royals uniform.
Right.
And Montreal is airbrushed out, and the M is airbrushed off his hat. And I've got a couple other exhibits with examples like that. Here's Luke Easter. Luke is in a San Diego Padres uniform with Padres. This is the Pacific Coast League Padres, with the Padres or San Diego airbrushed off the uniform. And I found these photos online at various times. And this is Larry Doby. This is an actual Major League Baseball card with a player in a Negro League uniform. This is on the Newark Eagles uniform, and the NE is airbrushed off the hat, and Newark or Eagles, I believe, is airbrushed off of the uniform in front. So that's kind of unique.
Yeah, I always think it's interesting to see all those photographs that get repurposed for major league teams. I mean, that could be a really cool collection. Is just all the Negro League photographs from cards, because there's like the very famous Rory Campanella rookie card. Part of me is like, it's really cool to know the history, but I also kind of wish that you could see them in the original Negro League uniforms as cards. Like, I kind of would love to have those as well. But I mean, that's just part of the story, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, Drew,
Yes, sir.
you're up.
All right. So something else. This is just kind of interesting, and this may be. Oh, this was well known for everybody. I didn't know this until probably 10 years ago, but I've been collecting my whole life, and it's just one of those little things. So, maybe somebody watching has never heard this before, but this is a 1959 Frank Robinson card, and this is probably my favorite Frank Robinson card.
It's a great card, yeah.
There's so many great things in this card, but I used this card not because it's necessarily Frank Robinson, but because of the team. So as you clearly see on the bottom, he's listed as the Cincinnati Redlegs, and I didn't know this until, like I said, about, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. But for a short period of time, the Cincinnati Reds, who's one of the oldest franchises in baseball, officially changed their name to the Redlegs because of the Red Scare that was going on with communism. And I don't know. I just thought that was neat that a professional baseball team didn't want to be identified as the Reds. So they actually changed their name for a few years just because of the whole paranoia that was going on around the country. So I don't know. Maybe people know that, and I was the last to find out. Maybe if there's somebody out there that didn't know that. I just find that interesting. So when you look at cards, I don't remember the years. So I just know 59 is part of it.
Yeah.
But the team did change their name to the Redlegs because of, the spread of socialism or communism and the fear of it in the United States. So I don't know. I just think that's kind of an interesting tie between. I've always found the tie between baseball as a game and American history, and how they've coincided since the inception of baseball, all through the Civil War and in the Industrial Age, and just, you can go on and name it. But even with this, something small like that, where a team was paranoid about, I don't know, just perception and image, that they actually changed their name because of it, not because of marketing. Well, I mean, I guess it's marketing. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. And maybe there's somebody out there that people didn't know that. So Well, Dylan didn't know that.
There
so
you go. Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know it.
You didn't know that?
Yeah, I did not.
Yeah.
I find that interesting. So if you're a collector, late 50s, early 60s, and you've got cards from players on the Reds, and you see their name as the Red Legs, now you know why. So there you go.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the fun for me. Like, I definitely remember when I discovered that when I started collecting vintage, because I had the same reactions like Red Legs. I don't remember ever hearing that. And so I went and looked, and sure enough, found out everything you were just talking about. And it's amazing. The tie between the card collecting and American history is so strong. So you like, even if you're trying to avoid it, you can't. They're so tied together.
Agreed. Yeah. So let's see if there's something else. If you can I go again?
Yeah, sure.
I've got
Sure.
another card, and I think this is the last 1956 card I'm going to pull out for the night. But I heard a podcast the other day, and they mentioned this card, and they mentioned something on it. It was a Golden Age cardboard, and I was surprised that neither Mike nor his guest knew this, and I thought maybe this isn't well known. But they were talking about the 1956 Topps Mickey Mantle, and this is my version of the Mickey Mantle. And you know that I'll get the glare. You know that the picture was taken, and you probably know that originally he actually missed this ball. He was very young, jumping up for a ball that there was no way he was going to catch.
Yeah.
But, so they superimposed the ball to make the catch, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But what they were talking about was, they always wondered why the players over here, the fans over here, were looking the wrong way. If you look at those three players, I'll try to hold it closer to the camera. Not players. They're looking in the wrong direction. But I want you to look closely at the player the fan right behind Mickey Mantle's ear. He's got like a white shirt with a black stripe on it. And he's sort of leaning behind the image of Mickey Mantle's head, if you can see that. Well, if you also look, that same player is now leaning, or not player, that same fan is now leaning into the picture on the other side. See the guy with the white stripe, or the white shirt with a black stripe? And what they did was they actually took, the photo wasn't wide enough to cover what they needed, so they took part of one side of it and they just doubled it over to the other side.
Wow.
And that's why those fans are looking the wrong way. They're actually looking at where the ball would have been, but then they moved them from one side of the card to the other side of the card just to make the photograph bigger. And again, it's just one of those things Topps needed to do at the time to create the card that they wanted. But it's kind of, again, now this is a classic card. Everybody knows the card,
Yeah.
whatever. But it's one of those things that I find interesting because it's almost like in a cartoon or something, where someone reaches into a screen one side and, they reach, well, that guy is leaning behind Mickey Mantle's ear and he's coming back in the other side of the frame. So again, it's a little tidbit, but now I bet you anything the next time, if you have one or if you see one at a show or something, you won't not see that. I always look at the guy with a striped shirt leaning through the frame card. So another little interesting thing about a very, very famous card, a popular card that a lot of people don't know, or at least some people don't know.
Yeah, I did not know that. And that was not easy to do at the time, at least not as easy as it is now. So they went to a lot of trouble to make that happen.
To splice the negative or whatever they did it from to make it match up. But anyway, I just find that interesting. So
Yeah.
And again, I'm educating Dylan one card at a time.
Dylan's getting all kinds of good stuff out of this. Okay, Don, you're up.
Let's pull up that other 73 Topps that I gave you.
Okay. Got it.
So maybe you guys know this, but I didn't. But do you guys see what's interesting about this card?
The Walt Disney World advertisement?
That's part of it.
I never noticed.
Look at his first name.
Oh.
So this was pulled out to me. I just found this card recently, and I don't have this, but I do want to add it to my background picture. But his name's Mickey. And again, going back to the advertising, that they have the Walt Disney advertisement in the background. So just a fun card. You kind of got to stretch a little bit to make the correlation with this card, maybe. But it's just some of the fun you can have with these cards, finding little quirks like this.
That's so good. I was like looking for an error or something.
Yeah. For a second, I thought they used his image, the silhouette up front because it's close, but that wasn't it. So
Nope.
what I find interesting about that is, obviously, this is a spring training game. They didn't have to put Walt Disney World as opposed to the Royal Crown Cola for Nolan Ryan. That just was in a game. But it's almost like they just front and center or back and center, but right there. So it's almost like, I don't know, a rep from Disney World was like, hey, listen, if you take that photograph here and slip the photographer a 20 or something.
Right. Advertisement.
But it's interesting because they didn't have to put that there. So whether that was just completely coincidence or something else, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I've never seen that.
Yeah. Or did they know the sign was there and they looked for a Mickey to put on there?
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if the photographer was like, hey, come over here. I've got an idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Disney World was 1971 it was open, so the picture was probably taken in 72. So that was a new thing. If I'm getting the dates right, I don't remember. Anyway,
Orlando knows all about it. But
Let's see. Okay. Here's one. I've shown this card before. This is another pre-war. 1925 Turf cigarettes. Baseball sports records. And there are lots of pre-war cards out there that are just general sets about different sporting events around the world, and this is one of those types. So when you look at the front, it's just this sort of generic depiction of baseball at the time. But the interesting thing about this card is on the back, they get into this whole thing about George Sisler and his record at the time. I think it's like his batting average or something like that. And even more interesting than that is that it says Mr. Sisler's name is to be inscribed on a baseball monument, which is supposed to cost $100,000, which will be erected in Washington. So the story goes that around this time, there were all these plans to erect this monument somewhere in Washington. Like, I think it was even perhaps near the Washington Monument. And it was meant to be this place where they could continually keep track of records that were being established in baseball. And this was before the Hall of Fame came into being and existed. So people were kind of like coming up with different ideas. What are we going to do? Like just trying to immortalize baseball. And this was one of the ideas. And then, of course, the Hall of Fame comes around and this idea falls through. They weren't able to raise the amount of money that they needed to do this. And then, of course, the Hall of Fame gets established and this idea goes away. So it's just this really obscure piece of history in addition to baseball history. The other thing about this, of course, is, there's a healthy debate. Some people just say this is a George Sisler card. Other people might say, well, this is just a generic baseball card that happens to mention George Sisler on the back. I don't really think it matters one way or the other. I just think it's a really beautiful card and it has some fun history to it.
I didn't know that about the monument. That's really neat.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to go back and like what before the Hall of Fame, we all just sort of assume the Hall of Fame was always there in a way, but those early days when people realized we need to kind of keep a record of all of this, and the ideas were all over the place initially, I guess.
Again, it's another tie between baseball and U.S. history. The fact that they were willing to put that in the middle of Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Whereas if they had and continued it, how would that monument be looked at today, where baseball is not as prevalent, in everybody's everyday mind? I don't know. That's interesting, though.
Right. Okay, Scott.
I can give my attempt to do a Drew story here.
All right.
I met this friend of mine named Andy at a card show in the mid '90s. We met because we're both Roger Maris fans. The only difference, Andy was the #1 Roger Maris fan in the country, and I didn't know it at the time, but he's got quite a collection. He grew up in the Bronx, and he was at the age where he started liking baseball, and he started going to Yankee games. And the right fielder was Roger Maris. Andy would sit in right field, and eventually they got to know each other by first name basis. You know, Roger would go, "Hey, Andy, how's it going?" And Andy would, say everything's going great. And Andy had a couple goals in life. He wanted to work in baseball. He wanted to be on a baseball card. After he went to college, and this is another Roger Maris part of his story, but he went to college, and the Pirates were playing the Cardinals, and Roger just got traded to the Cardinals, and Andy had been telling his buddies that he was how good of a buddy he was with Roger Maris and all this, and he went and bought tickets, row 9, seat 9, and Forbes Field, and Roger comes out, and Andy's just nervous. What's Roger going to say? And, is he going to remember him? And Roger comes out and goes, "Hey, Andy, how's it going?" And his buddies are all sitting there in awe. And he's, and to get back to the history, Roger had given Andy bats and gloves and everything. And Andy had asked for a home run ball. And Roger said, "You're going to have to get that yourself." So he's got the seat 9, row 9. Roger Maris comes to bat in Forbes Field, first National League appearance in Pittsburgh, and he hits the ball right to Andy. So Andy got his home run ball.
Wow.
That's incredible.
So later on, Andy got his job in baseball. He started working for the San Diego Padres, and he worked his way up from the ticket office up to VP of Public Relations. Some of the things that he did, he's responsible for the multicolored stitches in the All-Star Game ball.
Nice.
And he also was technical advisor for the movie 61 with Billy Crystal. And he also wrote a book, My 61.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of this book. That's so great.
And that's Andy there with his Roger Maris. And in the show I met him at was a Roger Maris golf tournament. There's a baseball card show at that tournament, and we had those for several years. This is a golf tag from that tournament in '96, and it's still going from 1983 until present. That's where I met Roger in 1983 at the Roger Maris golf tournament for the first time at the banquet. And Andy's there. He's putting so many things into auction every year out of his own collection. But the key to this story is, did Andy get on a baseball card? Because he's working for the Padres. So one spring training, he's walking around the field, and here's a Terry Kennedy sticker. If you look behind the bat, you can see Andy standing there. So he did get on a baseball card. And he does have a story he tells about that, and it's great. Andy's a great storyteller, and if you ever want to listen to him, he's got a YouTube video out there. It's about an hour long or so, and it talks about baseball. And I'm a Mama's Boy, I believe is the name of it. It's a really good video if you ever want to listen to him talk about his shenanigans in baseball growing up and leading to his tenure at the Padres. So that's my attempt.
Well, I'm done, guys. I can't top that. Have a good night.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That was great.
That was so. I
Thanks,
mean,
Drew.
as when you started the story, I had like the 61 movie kind of playing in my head, and then that it turns out that he wrote that book is so cool. That's a book I've been meaning to pick up. Incredible.
That's really good.
Thanks.
All right, Rick, it's your job to follow that.
I know. Now what?
Okay.
I'm like, now what am I going to talk about?
Come on, Rick. Good.
I don't have one that's that good, but I'm going to bring. I'll show two cards that I got. A lot of you know that I'm currently working on a 1941 plate ball set,
Yeah.
and I have this Bobby Dorr card. Hopefully you can
Yes.
see that with the glare.
One of my all-time favorite cards. Love
I
that.
love this card, but you know when I look at it, it almost looks like he's playing on a golf course. I see no sign. Okay, that could be a baseball or home plate area, but it just looks more like the background looks more like he's playing baseball on a golf course. So
Yeah, it's like almost like a little league field or a spring training field.
yeah, so and it's one of my favorite cards from this set, that and the Charlie Gehringer. So I thought, let me show this one up. The other one I wanted to show you was just because I never believed this, but I actually looked this up online today. The 1971 Topps Richie Allen. I have the same card, which is the 1971 Ticketron Dodgers card. It's a regional set they made in 1971 for the Dodgers and the Giants. This is the first baseball card, supposedly, since 1910 that has a player with a mustache on it.
Oh, that's
Reggie
right.
Jackson, Reggie Jackson, I think, would follow up in 1972 with a mustache on a card. So supposedly this is the first card since some guy named Wally Shang in 1910.
So good.
Yeah. So that's not as good as Stuke's story there, but had to throw in that Richie Allen, especially since you're a Phillies fan too.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate it. Dick Allen. All right. Drew, I think.
All right. So I've got two more cards to show. They're not as great as stories, but they're still kind of interesting. So one people may know or not about, but I find it interesting because of the backstory. So the card is actually from the 1963 Fleer set. And Rick, you'll appreciate both of these because both these cards are Dodger cards. But so it's 1963 Fleer Maury Wills card. And what's great about this in this set, if you're familiar with the set, is it's the only card. No, there's two cards. There's an AL too, but the Diamond, NL Most Valuable Player, because he won the MVP the year before. But this is considered his rookie card. This is the first major card printed of him because, and I looked it up right before we came on to make sure I got the facts straight. But he was a rookie in 1959, but he didn't have much prospect. He didn't have much hopes of even making it. So Topps said, "No, we're not going to make a card of you." Well, that stuck with him, and he didn't like that. He didn't like the fact that Topps kind of came in spring training or whatever and sort of just said, "Hey, everybody sign up for your toaster," or whatever they were doing at that point. And he was like, "No, I'm not signing with you." And then he started to get good in 1961. I'm sorry, 60, and then 61. And Topps was like, "Hey, we got to get a card," and he's like, "No, I'm still not doing it." And he didn't get on a Topps card until 1967. So I mean, 8 years into his career before he got his first Topps card. And this is the only major card of him. And of course, this is, he sort of he didn't revolutionize baseball, but in the 50s, stolen bases were not as prevalent. I mean, the guys would do it occasionally if it called for it. But as far as being like a major offensive threat, he sort of ushered that in the 60s, which then led to guys like Lou Brock and other speedsters, and then all the way up into what we grew up watching, with Ricky Henderson or whatever. But he was kind of the pioneer in shifting it back to a stolen base thing, and he refused to be on a Topps card because they sort of gave him the shaft back when he was a rookie, and I think that's great. I'm not I'm not like a Topps hater or anything, but if you can pull away from the cards that they produced and look at the way that they ran business, and I have a small business and I've been around business, they didn't always do things. It's not that they weren't ethical necessarily, but I don't know if I would agree with that they always took the high road to do what they did to get their product out. But that's a whole other story. But the Maury Wills I find interesting because, again, he was like the first person to be like, "No, I'm not going to do it." And he didn't for years. And again, 9 years into his career before he finally was like, all right, I'll take the toaster or whatever they were paying at that time. And I don't know. I find that interesting. And then the other card I want to show, and again, so I lied before. This is the last 1956 card again. So I just realized the same thing. So 1956 Topps, it was the first year that Topps put team cards out. And of course, what they were doing was taking black and white photography and coloring them in. This goes for all of the, all the cards that they produced for regular players as well. And most of the team cards are, honestly, they're very blurry. You can't really make much out. And we talked about it last time that technically that's Topps' first unusual card because his name is listed, and you can kind of see it, but you can't make out that is Stan Musial, but he is on there officially. So, but I came across this in a shop, and this card, and this is the Brooklyn Dodgers team card, and of course you guys know who's on the Dodgers. But what I found really interesting about this that I had never noticed was if you look in the top right-hand corner, standing, and you probably have to get. I'm going to get it really close. You can very clearly see that is Jackie Robinson, and
Yeah.
he's the only player that you can actually read his number on the whole card, and you can easily see that's number 42. And I thought, if there's a young collector or someone that talks about, well, I can't afford, 50s cards, or Jackie Robinson's out of my range, this is an official Topps card from 1956 that you can very clearly see Jackie Robinson. I mean, you can make out his facial features. My camera's not picking it up very well, but again, it's the only number you can see in the whole team card clearly, and the fact that it's right there, number 42, Jackie Robinson. And I thought that was really neat. Again, just coincidental, and they didn't know at the time that this was going to be the last year he played was 56. And but if you want to get an official Jackie Robinson card from playing days, this is a very inexpensive way to do it, and you can very clearly see him on there, not just his name on it. So anyway, I found that interesting when I came across that card.
No, that's fantastic. What year is that card?
That's 56, 1956 Topps.
Okay, cool. Great.
If you're ever in doubt, that's probably what I'm showing is 1956 Topps.
56 Topps. That's your other channel name. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, Don.
Let's go with the Kurt Flood card.
Okay. Coming right up. Kurt Flood.
So as probably everyone knows, who I like to collect is Stan Musial. But I bought this card a while ago because even though I mainly collect Hall of Famers, I like to get some guys that are part of the history of baseball and importance to the game. And Kurt Flood definitely was. These players today need to think they're lucky stars that Kurt Flood sacrificed everything he did. And then one day I'm looking closer at this card. I'm like, number 6 for the Cardinals. Could that be Stan Musial? I don't know for a fact it is, but kind of going back to Murray Wills, like Drew said, Stan has so few cards, Topps cards. So I'm always looking for neat things, and even if it's not Stan in the background, I'm going to say it is for my collection because I just want to.
What do you guys think? Is it Stan?
I see a blue cap.
Yeah. They've got the same shirt on, so if it would be home and away kind of situation. The only thing I could see where it may not be if it was a 16, maybe, and you can't see the 1, but it's
I don't think so. Yeah, unless it's a visiting player, is that a Cub or something maybe?
But that 6 is centered. It's Stan.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's Musial. I think that's.
Yeah, and I couldn't find anything on it. I've tried researching it, and I didn't find anything on it. It was just. I didn't buy that card with that intent. I didn't even notice it until a couple months later, just looking at my cards. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. This could be Stan.
Man, you're a Musial collector when they just come to you. So
I like it.
All right, now
So
here's
I
a
thought
silly
that's
question.
a
Though.
cool
Did Musial have hair in the back?
because you
Yeah,
can see a
hair.
little bit of his hair. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he did, right? Yeah,
Did he?
down to
yeah,
his.
full head of hair all the way
Okay.
up. When he was towards the end of his life, he wasn't. I don't think he was bald, was he?
I don't remember.
No, he had
No.
the hair
So,
the day he died.
yeah.
I could go on Google right now and start looking up pictures of Stan Musial's back. We can do some
So I count that
comparisons.
as part of my fan collection, but it also, I got it because of the history that Kurt Flood has added.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See if the
for
belt
sure.
loops match on a photo somewhere.
Right.
Now we're going deep.
All right. I've got one that's kind of similar to what Drew was just talking about when it comes to wanting to collect certain players. I think a lot of you guys know about this already, but I just wanted to share it. I didn't intend to stay with pre-war tonight, but that's where I'm going. So I've got this 1913 T200 Fatima card, and this is of the Phillies. And of course, the biggest name on here is Grover Cleveland Alexander. I got this, of course, because I'm a Phillies fan, and I just really love this image. If you look at all the Fatima images, I'm fairly certain that you've got the second row and they're standing, and the first row is kneeling. Well, what I love about this photograph is this basically just a pile-on of guys in the middle, which is pretty unique to all the Fatima cards, but also, of course, that Grover Cleveland Alexander and a couple other notable players are in this photograph as well. So this is another kind of example of a set that is not inexpensive by any stretch of the imagination, but there are players that you may not be able to afford single cards of or single player cards of that are in this era that you could definitely pick up in a card like this. And for that reason, I really like this set. This is the only one I have, but there are definitely others out there that I would like to get at some point. Do any of you guys have a T200?
No,
I
I've never.
do.
Rick? Okay.
Mine, one of the reasons I got mine was like what you said, Alex, is this one comes with a Casey Stengel.
Oh, nice.
Very good.
That glare is awful, but
There you go. That's good.
so Casey Stengel's in there. And if there's someone out there who has the Giants, I think Jim Thorpe is on that one.
Yes, he is. Yeah. Not to mention a bunch of other guys.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. We can do a kind of a final lightning round. Does anybody have any cards left over that they want to share?
Well,
Scott,
what's
One on there if you want. Go ahead, Scott.
what's a card room without mentioning this guy? Eddie Wakas.
There you go. I still don't have an Eddie Wakas, but that one is beautiful. What team is he on there?
He's on the Cubs, and here's the airbrushed out version.
Oh, okay.
That
And I
arm
believe-
motion reminds me of Sandy Koufax.
Yeah, that's what I thought
I
it was,
believe-
to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And this looks like a Phillies uniform.
Yeah, it does. With the
Yeah.
stars down there. That's really interesting. The 2 stars, they left those on there.
Now, I think is it the 55 Bowman Eddie Wakas on the back, the bio? It actually says something like "was shot by a deranged."
Yep.
Uses
Yep.
the verbiage
yeah.
like that's one of those interesting. Hey, I know. Let's do a bio for kids. We'll talk about it. I always found that interesting. I don't know.
Don't bring that card to school; you'll get expelled.
Yeah,
Right.
but that's a good one though.
Yeah, so Mookie's saying it tells a story and it has a happy ending of him meeting his wife. So maybe that's it has a
Maybe
nice happy ending.
So if you run into a deranged fan, you may end up a good twist. I don't know.
And I'll show my last one real quick, Alex, if
Sure.
you want. To show I don't know if you have them together or if they're separate, just show the 68 first.
Yep. I'm Don's AV
He is.
for
So
tonight.
there's really nothing special about this card, but I'm going to get to it in a minute. And I'm not a set collector. And I wouldn't have known about these cards except they made a video about catchers. And I was Googling catchers cards, and this came up. So we all know how lazy Topps is on using the same photo the next year, but they took it to the extreme in 1969. So if you want to show that one, Alex, please. Same photo, but he's left-handed. So not only were they lazy, but they couldn't even figure out that they had a left-handed catcher. So they reversed the photo. So I thought it was kind of cool that you had this combination of cards, same player. They made up for it in 75, which is a really cool card. But I was like, how do they miss this? But they did it with Hank Aaron in 57, so I guess it's possible to do it with anyone. But same photo, just right-handed to left-handed.
That's funny. I've never seen that before.
Right. Also, like not even taking into account the color scheme. Like, what was the Pilot's color scheme?
I don't know.
I don't even.
Oh, it was blue and gold,
They
wasn't
were
it?
blue. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with the stars.
What was the team he was on? Okay, he was on the
The
Orioles.
Orioles.
Orioles. Yeah.
I didn't know.
oh.
Is the chest protector and the hat the same color in the next one?
So Dan says they had to use the same photos in '69 because of a contract dispute with the players' union.
Yeah, I knew that.
But they could have got him as a right-handed catcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know of any other where they just reverse the fives. You know, where they blow it up or zoom out a bit. But I've never. That's interesting.
And look at the player behind him is in reverse as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Can you show the 69 again real quick?
The Orioles.
Oh, you can't. Never mind. Okay,
That's it.
And just keep doing this.
that's fine.
Very entertaining. All right. Nice. Any last ones, guys?
I'll show my last one.
Great.
A lot of people think, or it's true, the 55 Topps Sandy Koufax is his rookie card, but he also had another card in 1955, and it's 1955 golden stamps.
Oh yeah.
Why this company produced a Koufax and the Tommy Lasorda, I'm very surprised, but they did back then.
That's a beautiful looking image too.
That's great.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one is good.
Background.
Yeah, that's Ebbets Field there in the back.
I'm looking that up right now. I don't think
Uh-oh.
I've ever seen that before. Yeah.
That reminds
really?
me, Alex,
Seen the
did your book
Lasorda, but I
arrive
haven't
yet?
seen the color.
I'm sorry.
Did your book arrive yet? Your Koufax book?
Yes, it did. Yes, it
Okay.
did. Yeah. Yeah. I'll have
The
to
stamps
show
come
that
in a
at some
stamp album.
Yeah, I think there's like the
Search for the album.
Braves. There's a few of them.
Yeah, Braves,
Very cool.
Giants, Indians.
Oh, the Indians have them? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Any last ones?
No, that's all I
Well,
pulled
For
out.
me.
I wanted to
Ooh, yeah.
show this Maury Wills being Drew brought him up. Look at his name on the card.
What's that say?
Is that Maurice?
Oh,
Maurice.
Yeah. Great.
And that's
What
from-
year is that,
This
Scott?
is from 1963 stat back. And that has Maurice on the top too.
Oh yeah.
I
Yep.
never heard him called Maurice before.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
No.
All right, guys. That's probably a good time for us to wrap it up. So if you had a good time in here tonight, guys, I hope you'll give us a like and maybe leave a comment. But I want to thank Rick and Stuke and Don and Drew for their time and for their knowledge and for the crazy little bits of trivia that we got to go through tonight. It was a lot of fun. And always learning something new, which is part of the fun of vintage, I think. So thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you,
it.
Alex.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thanks,
Alex.
Alex.
See you
All right.
later.
Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you next
Yeah.
Sunday.